Shalom, Kol Halal, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha Kwadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers that do this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than never. The would-be judges, the tabernacle of David, the elect of Israel, which primarily make up the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans here on earth. And the rest of the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth among the heathen who have the appearance of the heathen. Right? This is not a black-only thing, as the enemies of the Israelites often try to push that false narrative. And to the few Aquath sisters that are listening and learning, to you, I say Shalom, my Redeemer, Yahweh Shai is coming back to set up his kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. All right? With the tabernacle of David being the head of that, being the enforcers of the laws under his authority. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago. All right? And I have quite a few video clips that I'd like to play. So let's first read copyright disclaimer. Got a couple scriptures that I did jot down, a couple in mind that I didn't. And Lord's will, they come out accordingly. But this is the copyright disclaimer, section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purpose such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, research. Fair use is permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. And as you see, we have a collection of videos here. Khazarian name stealers, all right, claim they are, all right. And this is the next one, the biblical consciousness and the name stealers. The Khazars, two museum artifacts that shatter the official narrative, all right, which connects the Khazars to the Hebrew talisman and the Rothschilds, proving the conversion, the mysterious disappearance of the Khazarian empire. At the same time, a whole group of humanity converted to Judaism. The name stealers. Okay, so we'll start with that one.
Changing the nail
Goddamn
game and
commercial,
winning
of course.
at it. Gel polish used to mean
So,
damage,
Salakia.
acetone, scraping, and
Oh boy, yeah, that ain't looking good. That was an old video of Palestine put back in color. That's gonna put a second commercial. What the fuck?
Every single Israeli prime minister has a fake name. Did you know that?
Well, hardly. It was the first and I think the only instance in history when one people granted to a second people the land that belonged to a third people. And in the era of colonialism, we didn't even possess it as a colony at the time. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire. It was not ours to give away, but we gave it away to a group of European colonial Jews. They never made any secret of that. They met in Basel in the late 19th century, but they met many times in the United States, in Baltimore and many other places. The newspaper headlines are extant, in which they described themselves as a Jewish colonial movement. And they were begging the British Empire to give them somewhere, anywhere, that they could found their Zionist settler state in. And they were in advanced talks with the British Empire about Uganda, about the Seychelles. They negotiated very seriously to have their state in Argentina, in Patagonia. That would have given rise to a different kind of PLO in the years to come. They were ready to found their settler state everywhere. They saw these white Europeans building settler colonial states in Australia, in Canada, in...
Let's correct something right now. Europe sits in Asia. Okay, it's called Eurasia for a reason. All right, Asia is the biggest continent. Europe is not a continent. Europe sits in Asia. I've proved that 1,000 times over. Okay, and you know what? Since I said it, for anyone who might be new, let's get the receipt. Let me find it now. Because they divided up the land, you know, in Isaiah 49. As a matter of fact, let's get that first. Not Isaiah, but Psalms 49. Psalms 49 and 11. It reads, "The inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names." All right. So, you know, Asia is named after Scipio Asiaticus. Africa is named after Scipio Africanus. America is named after Amerigo Vespucci. The earth was given into the hand of the wicked. All right. The wicked people rule the world. And the worst of them, the Amalekites, are at the top of that. All right. And those are the ones who deny their Khazarian heritage. All right. Which is an after the fact heritage in the first place. But they were the Khazars. And then it's actually the Khazar, one of the ways they get around is they put a K instead of a C, because it was originally spelled CH, not K. All right. But same people. And they are exposed. Okay. They are exposed, and the Chinese, you know, the Moab was the one that called them or nicknamed them the name stealers, because they're constantly, you know, hijacking other people's heritage.
In South Africa.
Oh, I gotta produce the receipt. Salakia. I read the scripture. Let me produce the receipt now. Okay. And all these images of proving also that the Vikings were not white. They were also melanated brown people. Yeah, it's a lot of, as a matter of fact, I wasn't even going to show that, but this was off the, that show Vikings that was so popular. And it even showed you, we always talk about how the Vikings were dark. They even showed you the Benjamite shield. That would be the Jamaican flag on one of the Viking shields. You see that? So yeah, there's a lot of little hidden truths right in your face. And that was on the show. It's funny how they get the dress right, the costumes right, and all these period pieces, but they just can't seem to get the people right. And Salakia, I have a lot of info in here, so, and that I've even added to it. So, you know, it moved, you know, when I would literally go into here and find things quickly. Now I have to look a little bit harder because with all the new additions, it kind of shifted things around. Found it. But here we go. This is from the Oxford Dictionary, 1850. Okay. And it's Eurasian. Okay. And it says the compound, all right, Europe and Asia, of or pertaining to Eurasia, to Europe and Asia, considering as forming in reality one continent. There's no divide. All right. So they divided up Asia into three parts. They divided up Asia, then they divided up one part, called it Europe, and divided up another, and drew some lines and called one part the Middle East. All of it was to form a false narrative. Okay, Edomites have dominion in the Middle East, which is Western Asia. All right, and then they also have dominion in Europe, which is also Western Asia, which all sits in Asia. Okay. So let's destroy that lie out the gate. Okay, Asia is one continent. Whether you came from Western Asia or Eastern Asia, it was one continent. And then there's evidence that Ammon and Moab went to the far eastern part of Asia. That's how we know the Chinese and the Japanese, along with history, relics, and biblical scripture. But that's also how we know that that they went to the far east portion of Asia. But they were originally from the part you call the Middle East. All right. Hence the reason why so many Israelites have that look, because they intermingled with them way back then.
Rhodesia and so on, they wanted a piece of the action. It was only later that they invented ex post facto a religious justification for building their state in Palestine. As a matter of fact, all the leaders of the early Zionist movement were atheists. They didn't believe in God, but they believed that God gave them Palestine. It's a monstrous fabrication that a moment's study, 25 minutes of study will give you the whole antecedent of this thing. So they arrived in a country.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to come to the truth, because, I watched a video yesterday where all these different NGO, J-ish NGOs that controls things in America, how they're threatening to hunt you down, and you a J hater, and you're anti-semantics and anti-semantics this, all right, simply for just not agreeing with them or bringing out evidences. No, the way you don't just take my evidence and just write it off as hate so that you don't have to produce it. You don't have to address it. Okay, and that's what they do. Instead of addressing situations, they just say, "Oh, well, that's hate. That's anti-semantics." All right, which just makes you look more guilty. All you'd have to do is just prove everyone wrong that's coming against you. That anyone is saying that you had a different heritage, that you hijacked it, prove them wrong historically. Prove them wrong before the world. And see, the problem is they can't do that. They can't prove us wrong. So what they do is they say, "Oh, well, this is hate. This is hate mongering." All right. They hijack the word truth. They hijack the word woke. And they put them right in line with the word conspiracy. When the truth of the matter is, the only conspiracy is them trying to cover up and hide this truth. The only conspiracy is trying to cover up those files and who they really are. That's the only conspiracy that's operating here.
Which already had people living in it. It was called Palestine. The people living in it were Palestinians. They were mainly Muslim, but a very substantial number were Christian. And there were even a considerable number of Jews who had always lived there.
And what he said was absolutely right as this film gets ready to play, because from the ancient time when Jerusalem fell, when Israel fell, all the Israelites didn't leave the land. All of them didn't get taken into slavery and get scattered abroad. Some of them actually stayed, but they were also there were also Ishmaelites and Hamites. You're going to see them tall, skinny Hamites walking around. But it's also showing you that Western Asia was very, very dark. And it became pale as these Edomites came in and started claiming they were, well, the name still is. And now they have that technology where they can take black and white films and add the color black to it. And you can see the back to it. And you can see the dusky, the swarthiness, the woolly hair of the people that were living in that include, because they'll just show you the light complected Arabs of today and not show you these people at all. Okay? And lots of Arabs are this dark. Lots of Ishmaelites are just as dark as Hamites, so-called Africans, and just as dark as Israelites, so-called Negroes. So you get the gist of it. See those tall, skinny Hamites, you know, that are intermingled, okay? But these were dark, melanated people prior to the arrival of Bibi Netanyahu, all the Finkelsteins and Silversteins and Goldsmiths. They weren't there. And they weren't from there, okay? They were actually from south of there in Mount Seir, if you go back to the ancient world. But nevertheless, we that makes that point. So we're going to click over to the next video, and I'll bring out another scripture, which is Second Ezra 6:27. And it reads, "For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which have been so long without fruit shall be declared." And the truth is being declared to the detriment of Esau, Edom, a self-proclaimed white man. And it's many of his own people and his women who are putting them up. But that's the curses falling upon him. The scripture says that his own tongue should fall upon him. All right? So here we go.
The main point here is that, yes, there is a cabal of Zionist Jews who is essentially acting as a shadow government. And Epstein is clearly evidence of that.
And all these NGOs, APAC, ADL, you know, and so on and so forth, that clearly, all right, clearly have dominion over American politicians and over American policy. The Federal Reserve itself is owned and controlled by them. It has nothing to do with our government, yet it makes decisions as if it is a fourth branch of government. I've been saying this for years, even before the truth about the Federal Reserve. Okay? America has been hijacked, and now it is apparent and open. Okay, and now it has a Gestapo called ICE. Why do you think all those concentration camps are being built? For those of you who are awakening to this, and those of you who are thinking about or talking about resisting on the internet, you cannot fight this man. His blessing was the sword, and when you live by the sword, that means that you jacking shit. Okay, that's what you're going to be, a colonizer. You're going to come in and take stuff that's not yours by force, and then set up the standard of what's moral and what's right, while never being moral or right.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems you've said it. It's a toxic culture. Meaning, the whole Israeli project it was founded on a genocide. It was founded on the Nakba. It was founded on stealing land that was given to them by an occupying force, the UK, that didn't have the right to give that land to anybody.
Right.
And it's what's funny to me is, as soon as the UK acknowledged that the Palestinians had a right to that land, they immediately sued the UK for giving that land to Israel, which is awesome. But here's what Candace Owens had to say. And I just want to get your response to it.
Sure.
Because the book that we are currently reading is so on time right now. Quite literally, we're completing this book on Friday, Sigmund Freud and the Jewish Mystical Tradition. After having read previously The Assault on Truth, those people were not surprised at all, because I took you through it. What Sigmund Freud and his B'nai B'rith Freemason boys actually believe about you, what they believe, how they have accomplished things, this false dialectic, their means to accomplish running Western society, breaking apart Christian empires. Yes, he hated Christians. It's a fact. He wrote about it extensively. He hated Catholics. And yet...
Yeah, the Bolsheviks, Stalin, which were J-ish, all right, committed a horrific Holocaust from 1917 to 1936 against the Russian Christians. They killed over 40,000 priests, pastors, all right, and 60 million Christians. Committed a horrific Holocaust against Christianism. And no one said a word. As a matter of fact, America, which was already being controlled by them, all right, sided with them.
Yes, they perform rituals. That is not an imagination. It's not a conspiracy. The only conspiracy are those that are colluding to hide those facts.
Exactly.
Now we can really stick our noses down at them. And no, I want to be clear. This is not Judaism. This isn't your grandma's Judaism.
It's no difference from your grandma's Judaism. This is Judaism, Candace. Always has been. It's not like they just started doing this.
Cult mysticism. That's the way that it's able to move through seemingly all the faiths, right? Aleister Crowley.
And Christianism.
How could you have the Star of David once upon a time? What was it? Before 1914, that was the flag of Morocco. That's weird. That's not a Jewish nation. What does it actually symbolize? Occult mysticism. That's why it's on the cover of Aleister Crowley's books. If you're going to perform magic and rituals. And yes, sorry guys, got to wake up. It's a Monday. We got to get you there. They deem children to be a necessary part of their initiation rituals. This I'm going to read from you is actually a direct quotation from Sigmund Freud.
Thousands of women have reversed hair loss in 3 to 9 months thanks to minoxidil. Introducing the minoxidil.
Shut up.
Okay. Person that was hailed as a hero. We were in high school and middle school, and he's the father of modern psychology. Yeah, guys, that's kind of the problem. That is kind of the problem, actually. Anyway, to contextualize this, he's writing a letter to his best friend.
Which brings to mind Sigmund Freud and your pseudoscience, your lies. It's a complete and total racism and open outright open racism and hate. Lies. Pseudoscience, false science to try to elevate paleness, to try to elevate Salakia, to try to elevate Edomites. But this is 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. So once again, one of my favorite scriptures, we were warned by Timothy that the time would come when a people would try to use false science against truth. The word science simply means to know. My favorite example is gravity. All right, I pick up my pen, I let it go, it falls and hits the desk. We know. What they do is they create a pseudoscience where there's no definite answers, where they can just manipulate and change it into whatever they want to be, or they can just assume, conjecture, no facts at all.
And also the person he was having a gay affair with.
So let me take that back. Sigmund Freud was so now you got this white male, pale male Edomite who's a homosexual. And this is the father of, of the science that they so gravitate to still to this day.
Guys, that's kind of the problem. That is kind of the problem, actually. Anyway, to contextualize this, he's writing a letter to his best friend, also the person he was having a gay affair with, who mentored him, Wilhelm Fliess. Now, I should skip to the part and tell you Wilhelm Fliess also molested his own son, Robert Fliess. Robert Fliess spoke about that when he got older. But Sigmund Freud is writing to Wilhelm Fliess after he gets initiated, because they wait until you're 36 to initiate you into the occult mystic Kabbalah. Okay, I'm going to read you what he writes. He's referring to a patient who he previously hadn't understood before his initiation, who came in, and she spoke to him about what she experienced when she was a child. He writes, imagine I obtained a scene, which means a patient was speaking to him about this, about the circumcision of a girl, the cutting of a piece of her labia,
Oh my God.
sucking up the blood, following which the child was given a piece of the skin to eat. He then fast forwards and he says, I dream, therefore, of a primeval devil religion whose rites are carried on secretly, and I understand the harsh therapy of the witches' judges. And then he speaks about this. Freud is implying here, by the way, this we are so anti-Semitism proof. This book was written by a guy who was the director of the Freud archives. He read Freud's unpublished works and determined that, yeah, Freud knew that the children were being abused in Vienna, and he created a social science, psychology, to help gaslight those children.
Exactly, to make it okay. This is what Edomites do, especially of the J-ish faction. This is Job 13 and 4, all right? But ye are forgers of lies. You are all physicians of no value. They're doctors. And if for anyone who doesn't know, doctor, the word literally means to falsify. All right, look it up. It literally means to falsify. All right, you know how you doctor up some paperwork? You know how Edomites, when they're unqualified and through nepotism or other means, they get into a position, you know, as Will Smith called it in that movie, when he played Deadshot. I forget the name of the movie. It was one of those DC movies when he wanted his daughter to go to a school, and he said if her grades aren't good enough to get in there for his services, that was his request for his services. If my daughter's not good enough to get into that school, white people that shit, that's exactly what you call it. That's what I like to call it, because that's what it is. White people that shit. Because they love to talk about DEI and all this other mess. And most of the positions that they're in, they white peopled that shit. They're not even qualified to be in a lot of positions that they're in by trying to point out others.
What you got to be aware of. This is all real. It's not imagined. These are not kooky people on the internet that are telling you this. Quite the opposite. And then this guy, Jason Mussone, who writes this book, writes that Freud is implying here that the Sabbats were real events, part of a ritualized religion in which sexual perversions were acted out. So he was aware that this was happening.
So, you know, it just makes me think of, in the book of Maccabees. Let's go to the book of Maccabees real quick. At Masphah, over by the temple there. There's this is First Maccabees 3, and I think I'll start at 46. I'll start at 45. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold, and the heathen had the habitation in that place. The joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp had ceased. See, because Edom had taken control of the temple and set heathen around about even back then. Okay? And now they've done it again. It says, wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Masphah over against Jerusalem, for in Masphah was a place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. It's no different now. These people are in the Holy Land, and they're painting the likeness of their images. All right? This is Deuteronomy 33:29. And it reads, Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thy enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. And we're going to physically do that, but the way we're doing it now is through this truth, through the word, right? Through filtering modern events through prophecy and through the scriptures. And only people can do that are the men of the Lord. No one else can do that. Let's play a little bit more of Candace.
And in
Jimmy
case
Dore.
you are not aware, Sigmund Freud, the background story there is wild. Right? He was once an outcast in the very tight-knit, perverted psychology club in Vienna because he told the truth. He went to the morgue. He examined children who had died after they were horrifically murdered and sexually assaulted. And then he also saw patients who were children who were still alive, who were telling him these stories about what they lived through. And he had determined after speaking to these children that they were all telling the truth. And so he gets ostracized from the psychology community.
And that's exactly what they do. You're anti-Semitic. That's J-hate. And they're still doing it now. Okay? I'm thinking I should change the angle of the camera. Nah, we'll leave it. Let's play this video.
I have been of the opinion for a long time that the pushback against releasing the Epstein files is because whatever is in those files is much worse than child molestation. And I think what was released today proves that. And yes, the Department of Justice released that Trump was on Epstein's plane a lot more than we were told.
Well, it shows you that your government is all entangled in this and controlled by this. Your voting, none of that matters. They control every aspect of the U.S. government has been completely and totally hijacked. That's why the law of the land is just being trampled over, and the DOJ isn't doing its job because they listen to Trump. Trump has become a dictator, but the truth of the matter is Trump is only really the face of it. He answers to Bibi Netanyahu, and Bibi Netanyahu answers to the Rothschilds and the bankers. That's what's going on here. America's done. It's already over, and now they're going to turn democracy inward on its people. So now the Gestapo, the stormtroopers, are getting ready to storm on the inhabitants of America to make them fall in line.
They released more emails solidifying the closeness of their relationship, but then they released this. That Donald Trump used Epstein to procure a child that he forcefully and repeatedly assaulted, and when she got pregnant, possibly by Donald Trump, he was not only present at the birth, he was present when her uncle drowned the newborn in Lake Michigan. So maybe when he was talking about they're killing babies after they're born, which doesn't happen, has always been illegal, has never existed. I was raised with that. Like maybe he was speaking from fucking personal.
He was projecting. This is what Edomites do. They project. All right, especially the little hats, especially the Chazar deniers. All right, they are the kings and queens of villain victimhood. They commit all the crimes and they project those crimes onto the people that they're attacking, and say that they're defending themselves.
Experience. And yes, we have to be calling our representatives, and yes, we have to be screaming to high heavens. And
no, why? They're all compromised. They're Edomites. Any place where there's a pale male, you are not safe. Period.
The most devastating thing to me in the Epstein files is not them comparing babies to the taste of cream cheese, or saying a hot 9-year-old Brazilian, or your littlest girl was a little naughty, or the bodies that are on Zorro Ranch and that were put there by Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And it's not the...
This is the way of white Judeo-Christianism. Always has been. And it's being exposed to the shame, Shameful spewing is upon your glory. This is the rulership, and always has been, of the so-called white man. They didn't have social media and cameras, on every damn phone and everywhere 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. This is the behavior they've always done from their inception. All right. America, from the bringing of the slaves and the taking of America and turning the inhabitants into slaves, right along with the people that they brought here. Okay. It's always been a slaughtering ground of sacrifice, child sacrifice, molestation, rape, carnage, and blood. It always has been.
The fact that there will be no investigations in the United States. There's been no arrest, no inquiry. Kash Patel has said, we've done our duty, we followed the law, even though they were 2 months late following the Epstein Act. And it's not that there's not going to be any arrests, that they're going to get away with it. We don't have to wonder if this trafficking ring exists. There's already someone in jail for it. And I want us to keep in mind that it took all of this for over 1,000 women's stories to be believed in a trafficking ring we know exists. And the only person in jail for this ring is a woman.
Damn.
That's not even the worst part for me. The worst part of it for me is watching Christians fall at the feet of a man who was an active participant in it. And
because Christianity is false. It is not sincere. All right. And the people that control it are very aware of that. Is that you stupid people who just blindly follow that message. This is what has always gone on underneath and behind your churches.
the men who align themselves with him, because power apparently is their get out of jail free card. It's the same thing that happened in 2016 when Trump ran. And I remember being so deeply offended when he invoked the name of Christ, because I knew how immoral and awful he was and the things he said, especially after the grab him by the pussy comment. And I watched all these people who had raised me, people that I looked up to, people that were spiritual mentors, fall at the feet of this man. People had told me that leadership requires moral clarity. People that had preached biblical marriage and purity, and you can't be gay, and you can't masturbate, and you can't do all these things. But then they were falling at the feet, salivating at one of the most womanizing, evil men I've ever seen, building shrines to him in their household, posting pictures of him with Jesus Christ over him, pictures of him on the cross, comparing him to Cyrus.
Because when they think of the Lord, they put up the false image of Cesare Borgia. All right, you saw what Palestine looked like. Didn't look like Cesare.
Verse of the Bible. And I realized in that moment that Christian nationalism at its core was corrupt. The Christian nationalism's God is not Jesus, it's power.
The Christian nationalism God is Jesus. Jesus is not the name of the Lord. G meaning earth, sus meaning pig. All right, they really trample on the name of the Lord. All right, and they don't believe in Yahushua. They don't believe in the King. They don't believe in the record that is written. So they made their own God, and that is what they follow. The Bible it was just a crutch, a tool to throw in the face of the people, while they all secretly worshiped out of the book. What's the book on display? The Talisman. Out of the Babylonian Talmud, the Kabbalah, and all these other books. All right, Isaiah 34:16 clearly states that there is no mate to her. You can't match another book with the Holy Scriptures. Okay, this is Ezekiel. (36) and 2. Thus saith the Lord power, because the enemy hath said against you, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. And they just find it comical, all right, that they still use that term to this day, all right, among the J-ish, among the Chazar deniers, that aha, they still to this day. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea. That's all of the so-called white race. Those of them who are really Edomites, because it's not about color. It's about lineage. If you don't understand that, then you need a lot of studying. You get to study some more. Which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with the despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. The Bible gives you record that the Edomites in the last days appoints the Holy Land into their possession. The Lord returns to a world ruled by the wicked, ruled by Edom, the Edomites, the Idumeans. Okay? That's what Obadiah is about. Psalm 63 is all about. Isaiah 34th chapter, he's coming back to smite down Edom, Idumea from power, which proves they are not the Israelites. 100%. This is last scripture. I'm going to shut it down. Isaiah 41, 14 and 15. And it reads, "Fear not, thou worm Jacob." We're considered as worms, no power. Worm is the most defenseless creature. Ants come by and get it. Birds come down and eat it. They get stepped on, swallowed by frogs. They have no defense. Fear not, thou worm Jacob, ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith Yahweh, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. That is Yahushai, who the world fraudulently and falsely calls JC. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument having teeth. See, we're going to become the sword. All right? Look at that game Prototype. And that Prototype 2, when that Jake becomes a weapon. When he can transform he can fly, and he can transform his limbs to all sorts of swords and sharp threshing instruments. I think his name is John Heller. Okay. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument having teeth that shall thresh the mountains, the other nations. The mountains represents large nations, hills represent little nations, and beat them small, and shall make the hills as chaff. The tabernacle of David that is going to rule over all nations on earth as it is in heaven, under the authority of Yahushai. Call halal Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bahasham Wakaha Kodash Kwam Yasharala Abba Babal.